Wendy Williams' former attorney is speaking out again and claiming that Lori Schiller from Wells Fargo left Wendy Williams to die when they locked her out of her accounts. Welcome back to the Kempire Daily YouTube channel, your #1 source for pop culture news in music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So it was just the other day that we were talking about LaShawn Thomas, Wendy Williams' former attorney, and Kelvin Hunter's current attorney. That's important to be noted. According to LaShawn Thomas in the last report, she said that the courts here in New York would not allow her to represent Wendy Williams because of a conflict of interest. She also said that they would not allow her to speak to the media. Well, now she's no longer Wendy's attorney, and she is speaking a lot with an exclusive statement to Page 6. And she has some shocking claims about what happened with Wendy Williams and her Wells Fargo accounts. And at this point, guys, I have no idea who to trust in this situation. So I can only imagine how Wendy Williams feels. So Page 6 reports this. They says Wendy Williams' former attorney claims that the talk show host was, quote, left to die by her ex-financial manager, Lori Schiller. LaShawn Thomas tells Page 6 exclusively in a lengthy statement that Wells Fargo's financial advisor, Lori Schiller, who no longer works for Williams but is embroiled in her lawsuit against the bank, is attempting to, quote, muddy the waters by allegedly contributing to a false report that Williams' son misused her American Express card. As you know, we talked about that in the last video, that they were accusing Kevin Jr. of charging over $100,000 on her Amex card. And some of you were like, that doesn't seem unusual. First of all, a kid whose mother is a multimillionaire. But at the same time, do we know what it was purchased for? Because one of the things that we didn't talk about was that this was being used to purchase a condo for him. We'll get back to that. The article continues. They say the real issue is that Wells Fargo, through their advisor, refused to grant Wendy access to her own accounts. This includes the right to check her balance. This is according to LaShawn Thomas. She continues and she says no bank should have the authority to do that. No one attempted to gain access to any of Wendy's accounts. The Wells Fargo advisor and the former manager, Bernie Young, were the only people with access. They left Wendy to die. Thomas explains that Wendy had no access to any of her funds. She was forced to use her Amex for all of her living expenses, including flights to and from New York for doctor's appointments, groceries, etc. Since the shock jock's health has taken a turn, her son, Kevin Hunter Jr., has stepped in to help her, both, quote, mentally and physically, with the assistance of a team of doctors. She says he coordinated all of her appointments, made sure she attended all appointments, cooked and cleaned for his mother. He absolutely loves his mother without question, and no one should place any blame or allegations of wrongdoing at his feet. The defense of Kevin Jr. comes after a report, as you guys know, that he had charged over $100,000 to his mom's credit card without authorization and, quote, demanded Schiller pay it. The validity of the report is unclear, as it was pegged to an anonymous source, but the University of Miami student denied the claims in a statement, telling the U.S. Sun, "I vehemently deny any allegations of unauthorized use of my mother's American Express card. This is a false narrative perpetuated to justify freezing her accounts." So LaShawn Thomas, Wendy Williams' former attorney, continues and says, Lori's responsibility was to pay all of Wendy's and Kevin Jr.'s bills. Kevin has always reached out to Lori for payment of bills, she said. If anyone, Wendy or Kevin, needed money, they had to contact Lori so that she could initiate payment. Page 6 has learned that Williams' desire to buy Kevin a condo in Miami prompted the frozen accounts, and which led to the legal guardianship. So that is something new that we didn't know, because we were like, what prompted Lori Schiller and Wells Fargo to freeze their accounts? They're saying this purchase of a condo is what prompted it. The source tells us that Williams enlisted Schiller to work out the details of the real estate purchase because the advisor allegedly promised that the Wendy's Got the Heat author that she could help her avoid commission fees. A month before Kevin Jr.'s lease was up, however, he got a call from his landlord that he had never received an offer to purchase, and the price had skyrocketed to another $250,000. Thomas confirms these claims in her statement and explains that Schiller, out of nowhere, informed Kevin Jr. she could, quote, could no longer speak with him without Wendy's written authorization because a verbal one was, quote, no longer sufficient. In response, Williams asked to be taken to a local Wells Fargo branch to submit the written authorization and power of attorney. In the early months of us covering these Wells Fargo issues, we talked about that. They asked her to provide this information, and once she did, they still denied her access. So it continues as Thomas claims the local branch manager, quote, refused to accept the power of attorney. Williams and the branch manager called Schiller, as we reported in our last coverage of the story, who was in charge, who then would only agree to talk to Williams without anyone else present. Remember, Lori Schiller was on the phone with the branch manager, and the branch manager says, Lori will speak with Wendy only. She will not speak with Kevin present or with the lawyer. But Wendy was like, no, I want my lawyer to be there. LaShawn says this. She says, the right to counsel is a constitutional right that a financial institution does not have the freedom to curtail. I have to agree with LaShawn here. They continue and they say, instead, Schiller locked Wendy out of all of her accounts. Schiller restricted all access to every single account. Wendy was even restricted from going to the bank and personally withdrawing funds. Wendy, a woman who has worked hard for her wealth, was left penniless. According to Sean Zanotti, a rep for Wendy Williams, Sean says this, the real goal here is to help Wendy regain full and sole control of the assets that she has worked hard for the last 30 years of her life. We would appreciate if you give her time to heal. According to Page 6, they say that Lori Schiller didn't respond to their request for comment, but a spokesperson for Wells Fargo has denied any allegations of improper actions with respect to Ms. Williams' accounts. As you already know, Wendy Williams is currently under a court-ordered guardianship in which she was not in agreement with because she feels that she is capable of managing her money since the spring. So there was rumors that this sort of guardianship would probably end in July. From what we've heard, it's that it has been extended. Here's the thing, and I've said this in the last video that I did on this story. I just don't know who to trust in this situation. So I can only imagine how Wendy feels. However, her son, now that she is a divorced woman, I know she says that she's married. I don't know if I believe that. But now that she is a divorced woman, it should automatically, I know it varies state to state, but isn't Kevin Hunter Jr., the heir to all of that money that's in the accounts? So I kind of feel like Wells Fargo is not all clean here. And I also feel that there are people around Wendy that are taking advantage of her because it's very clear to us that Wendy Williams is not 100%. We've seen it countless times in interviews recently. She's not 100%. So part of me feels as if maybe Lori may have witnessed something that made her be concerned. However, I feel as if Kevin Jr., though, although he's 21 years old, he is the heir to whatever Wendy has. So I do, and I told you this in the last video, I recently had a similar issue, meaning that it's not millions of dollars, calm down. But I had an issue at the bank and they basically were like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, that's my money. And that makes me very concerned for all of us that this could happen to each and every one of us. And we've said that before. I'm not downing Wells Fargo here, but I feel as if their level of access that they're not giving to Wendy and her son, guys, make sure that you, whoever is supposed to take care of your stuff, God forbid you are incapacitated, this is the time. This is the reminder to make sure that all those things are in place so that whoever you want taking care of those things takes care of those things. I'm sure Wendy and her family did not expect that Wendy would be in this position that she's in now. But to be left to die, I think that is a bit dramatic. However, if you don't have access to your accounts, a lot of people don't live with cash. That's why a lot of people, growing up, people like cash is king. You should always have cash, because now you don't even have access to your credit card and your bank accounts. And someone else is overseeing that right now. I don't know what's going on here. This court case is sealed. So that's also part of the reason why we don't have a lot of information. I feel like, LaShawn, there is a level of conflict here, because is Wendy Williams still paying Kelvin Hunter alimony? Is that part of your motivation in getting that money freed up as well? Has this caused a delay in what Kelvin receives? That's what I'm saying. There's like no one you can trust here. I just pray, I said this the last time when I covered this story, I pray that there's some sort of movement forward with this story, meaning that Wendy or at least someone that she trusts can oversee access to her accounts. Guys, let's continue this conversation below. I want to know your reaction to this story in regards to Wendy Williams being left to die based off of her not having access to her money at Wells Fargo. Let's continue this conversation below. And as always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.